Hello everybody, I'm Logan and today we're going to be talking about our capital investment project, which is going to be expanding Amoresco into Spain. In this section I'm going to be explaining a little bit about what Amoresco is, the capital investment project we're proposing, and kind of why it's going to sustain itself and why it's a good idea. Okay, so Amoresco is a clean energy and energy efficiency company. So they basically help organizations save money on energy while also reducing carbon emissions. They work with government buildings, schools, military bases, utility companies, and other large companies and corporations. The solutions they kind of offer are solar power, battery storage systems, and energy efficient upgrades to buildings to help them kind of reduce their emissions and be more energy efficient. So Amoresco also develops energy projects, meaning that they can build solar farms that sell energy through contracts. So that's kind of what we're proposing to do. Through these systems and projects, Amoresco can meet its mission, which is to help organizations reduce costs and meet sustainability targets. Okay, so the project that we are proposing is that Amoresco expand its operations to Spain by building a utility solar energy facility. So we're going to include a 25 megawatt solar farm and a 10 megawatt battery storage system. With 25 megawatts, we can power approximately 5,000 homes. So the 10 megawatt battery storage system comes into play because it stores any excess energy that can be released during the night or on cloudy days. Spain is currently making a significant push towards renewable energy sources, so they will be in support of this project. So there are several reasons why we think that expanding into Spain would be a good idea for Amoresco. So first, Spain is one of Europe's sunniest countries, so it can actually support the solar farm, which is one of our main concerns. Spain's government is also pushing for more use of renewable energy sources, so there's going to be support from the government on this expansion, kind of like I mentioned before. Amoresco is already currently working in the UK, so expanding into other European countries like Spain would help expand Amoresco's international presence, which is a great business strategy. Finally, building assets in more than one geographic region reduces business risk and is a good long-term strategy for Amoresco. So in this section, I'm going to talk a little bit about the initial capital investment of our proposed project, what costs will be incurred during the life of the project, and the timeline of our proposed project. For a project this size, we expect the initial capital investment to be around $48 million. So this includes everything required to build and connect the solar energy facility and the battery storage system. The good news for Amoresco is that Spain and other parts of Europe offer incentives and funding options for renewable energy projects. So this will hopefully lower the Amoresco's net cost. So here's kind of a breakdown of the major costs that Amoresco will incur if it adopts the project. The major one that I want to talk about is the solar equipment part, which accounts for 20 to 22 million of it. This is basically just like the purchase of the solar panels and other equipment. But as you can see, there's a kind of breakdown of the costs. Okay, so as for the timeline of this project, we expect that it'll take around 18 to 24 months to complete, and it will have 4 different phases. So in the first 6 months, we're going to acquire the land, get environmental and government approvals, and then in phase 2, we're going to get all the engineering designs complete, get major equipment like the solar panels and batteries on order. For phase 3, we're going to prepare the land, install the solar panels, and then get electrical systems in place. And then finally for phase 4, we're going to kind of finalize everything, ensure that the system is tested, we're going to connect it to the grid, and finally launch operations. So next, Tyler's going to be talking about his part.
My name is Tyler, and I will be going over the projected cash flows for this project. In the year of 2026, we expect the project to generate a revenue of $18 million with a operating expense of $11.2 million. Depreciation of $3 million, taxes at a 25% tax rate of $0.95 million, and changes in working capital of negative $0.3 million. We expect the free cash flow for the year of 2026 to be $5.55 million. In the year of 2027, we expect revenue to be generated of $20.5 million with an operating expense of $12.1 million. Depreciation of $3 million, taxes at a 25% tax rate of $1.35 million, and change in working capital of negative $0.15 million. We expect the free cash flow for the year of 2027 to be $6.9 million. In the year of 2028, we expect the project to generate a revenue of $22 million with operating expenses of $12.9 million, depreciation of $3 million, taxes of $1.525 million at a 25% tax rate, and changes in working capital of an addition of $0.10 million. We expect the free cash flow for the year of 2028 to be $7.68 million. I will now explain the assumptions that support these forecasts. The revenue assumptions, revenue increases from $18 million to $22 million over the 3-year period, as you saw in the cash flow forecast. Growth reflects the expanding project scope and the higher energy savings output that will be caused by the solar farm and the scheduled operation and maintenance escalators. The annual growth of 5 to 7% aligns with typical performance for mid-sized energy efficiency and renewable service contracts. The operating cost assumptions: operating expenses rise gradually as project demand increases. It scales with labor, materials, and subcontracting needs. Inflation for project-related costs is assumed at a 3 to 4% per year, consistent with construction and energy services industry trends. And the operation and maintenance cost growth remains moderate at about 2 to 3%, reflecting efficiency gains and predictable service requirements. The depreciation and tax assumptions: depreciation held constant at $3 million for each year, which represents the allocation of project capital over its useful life. 25% tax rate was applied, consistent with corporate norms in the renewable energy industry, and it is used to derive the net operating profit after tax for the cash flow calculations. Working capital assumptions: the early project years show increased working capital needs, with the change in working capital being a negative number due to higher accounts receivable and inventory requirements during building the actual project. A partial release of working capital in the year of 2028 happens with an addition of $0.1 million, which is construction winding down, operations stabilizing, and the cash flow improving overall. I will now go over the capital budgeting analysis of this project. The capital budgeting analysis for this project used the projected free cash flows from the cash flows projection with a 12% discount rate to evaluate the project's final financial performance. The results were a net present value of $15.9 million with an internal rate of return at 20%. The discount rate that we used was a 12% discount rate, and both metrics indicate a financially attractive project. The IRR exceeded the required 12% return, and the positive NPV confirms that the project actually generates value above its cost of capital. This discount rate is appropriate because it was based on publicly available estimates of Ameresco's weighted average cost of capital, which ranges anywhere from 12% to about 14.75%. This rate reflects Ameresco's capital structure and typical project financing mix. It reflects the risk profile of an energy efficiency and renewable energy infrastructure company or project. It also reflects long-term contract stability, supporting predictable cash flows, as well as industry standard hurdle rates for similar mid-sized clean energy projects. Using 12% provides a conservative and realistic benchmark for evaluating the project return overall.
Now that we've gone through the project overview, costs, and cash flows, I'll walk through how we plan to fund the Spain expansion and the key risks we've identified. First, let's look at the overall funding strategy. Our total initial investment for the Spain project is about $48 million. That includes land acquisition, solar equipment, the energy storage system, engineering and construction, grid connection, and other developmental costs needed to get the facility built and online. To finance this, we're proposing a mixed structure of both debt and equity. At the project level, we're targeting roughly 60% debt and 40% equity. From that equity portion, we're asking you, Dr. Cole, to invest $5 million in equity. The remaining equity would come from Ameresco and potentially other institutional investors. This structure is designed to keep the project's overall cost of capital close to our 12% discount rate while still maintaining financial flexibility and a reasonable risk profile. We chose a combination of debt and equity because each type of financing brings something different to the table. On the debt side, borrowing is typically cheaper than equity, and interest payments are tax deductible, which lower the effective cost. That works well here because this is a long-lived solar plus storage asset with relatively predictive cash flows once it's operating. The debt is meant to match those stable cash flows over time. On the equity side, there are no mandatory interest or principal payments, which gives the project breathing room if early cash flows are a little weaker than expected. Equity investors share in the upside, but also provide a buffer against downside risks and help keep Ameresco's balance sheet and credit profile strong. Put together, our 60-40 debt equity mix balances cost efficiency from using debt with flexibility and a safety net that equity provides. To sum up the trade-offs of this project, the main advantages of debt are its lower required return, the tax shield from interest, and the fact that it avoids heavily diluting Ameresco's current shareholders. The downside is it increases financial risk. We have fixed payment obligations and may face lender covenants tied to leverage or coverage ratios. For equity, the advantages are that there are no fixed payments, which is especially valuable if the project hits a rough patch, and it strengthens the equity base, supporting future borrowing capacity. The trade-off is that equity is more expensive capital and dilutes ownership and some control. Given our projections with a 12% discount rate, the project generates an NPV of about $15.9 million and an IRR of 20%. That tells us that this expansion can comfortably support a moderate level of debt without pushing the risk too high. So we believe that 60% debt and 40% equity structure, including a $5 million equity stake from you, Dr. Cole, is a reasonable balance between return, risk, and control. Next, I'll highlight the main risks tied to this investment. We focused on three key areas. The first is regulatory and policy risk. Because this project operates in Spain under EU energy and climate rules, changes in renewable incentives, grid connection policies, or tariffs could affect the project revenues and profitability. The second is market and price risk. Our revenues ultimately depend on electricity prices and our counterparties. If power prices fall, or if a buyer under a long-term contract defaults or tries to renegotiate, that could reduce the cash flows we're expecting. The third is construction and operational risk. There is always the chance of delays in permitting or interconnection, cost overruns during construction, or the possibility that the solar and storage systems underperform relative to expectation. Any of those could impact the timing and size of our free cash flows. To manage these risks, we're building mitigation strategies directly into the project plan. For regulatory and policy risk, we're aligning the project with long-term EU and Spanish renewable energy goals and working with local legal and regulatory experts to stay on top of any policy changes. For market and price risk, the goal is to secure long-term power purchase agreements with credit-worthy counterparties such as utilities or large corporate customers, and to use price floors or partial hedging so we're not fully exposed to spot market volatility. For construction and operational risk, we plan to partner with experienced EPC contractors and local partners, including a contingency budget with roughly $48 million in capex, and lock in major equipment prices early to reduce cost surprises. Finally, our moderate leverage level itself is a risk management tool. By avoiding excessive debt, we help ensure that interest coverage remains healthy even if we experience an unfavorable scenario, which protects both Ameresco and investors like you. Overall, our funding strategy and risk plan are designed to make the Spain expansion financially attractive but also resilient if conditions don't go perfectly. Thank you.